Hi, welcome back, beautiful, beloved souls. I know it's been a while and I'm still deciding what to do. For those of you who are new, my name is Gem Stone. I'm a psychic medium and I am an author. On this channel, you'll find mainly commentaries where I look at anything and everything to do with life and death through a lens, hence the name of the channel. I have a particular interest and fascination in consciousness, where I look at consciousness through different lenses. And the last lot I looked at the self. And I've been away for a while. As I said, I've been doing art and I was learning JavaScript. Not only how to code Pong, but what the code meant. And I've done a few lessons and I need to do a few more. But today I was watching YouTube myself, and on YouTube a video came up, and I don't know the source. I don't know if it's a TikTok video or if it's a YouTube video, but they were interviewing a scientist and the video looked quite old, and the scientist was talking about the multiverse, that in the multiverse there's infinite copies of you, and that eventually those copies, well, at the closest universe or multiverse, whatever you want to call them, the closest dimensions to you, that copy is almost identical. But the further you go, the less likely that copy resembles you. In fact, you have to question, is it even you anymore? So when we say, who am I? Am I that copy? The multi-dimensional to the X degree? Is that me? Who is that person? And that's played in my mind because I've been married several times, and the copies of you, every decision you make, there's a copy. So say you came to a street and you're just going for a walk and you could go left or you could go right. Well, half of you went left and half of you went right. And then when it came to the next part, the next decision, half of you did that and half did something else. So I looked at a simple just marrying 4 times. So did each one lead to the next marriage or didn't it? And let's say my first marriage, half of me never married that man. So half of me don't have, that particular copy, don't have the children I have, because it's only with that man did I have 3 children or 2 children, because I met someone when the marriage was ended and had the 3rd child. So I wouldn't have had any of my children if I hadn't have married that man. And then, so half of those copies didn't marry my first husband. Then half never got divorced from him. So half went on to stay with him. But the other half, then half of them never met my second husband. And I had a lot of miscarriages. I had 2 with my first, but that might never have happened. They might have been children. And with my second, I had 11, including an ectopic pregnancy. So half of that might never have happened, and I might have 11 children. And then after and in between marriages, I've been with other people as well. I was engaged to someone, so half of them never happened. Then let's say the half that married my second husband, half of us got divorced and half of us are still with him. And then my third marriage, half never met this is the half of every situation. You're halving and halving again, because remember I shared with you that you might have gone to a street and half went left and half went right. So we're halving every time. So by the time we get to my third marriage, half of those copies never met my third husband, and half married him, and half again didn't divorce him, and half did. And then my fourth husband, half never met him, and with half he never died. Maybe I died, because I've shared with you what should have been a fatal overdose. In that part, that version of Jem died. And half of the whatever infinite number who went on to be a drug addict, half of them, never were a drug addict. And the ones that did went on to be a drug addict, half never got clean and half are clean. So it kind of makes you go a little bit crazy when you think of every decision. And some decisions are not so neat, like black and white, left or right. There might be 4 options, so a quarter. Or maybe there's a million options. So can you see that perhaps right at this moment, the copy of me that didn't do is the closest to me in resemblance, but way back when I was a child and made decisions, and that version went on to make their decisions. How? Because I'm now 65. In those 65 years, think of the infinite choices I made, and then all those copies of Jem. So the chances of even me sitting here being a YouTube creator in those infinite dimensions is so minuscule. Have you ever sat down and thought about this? The fact that I'm actually here. How many copies of me exist even? Because when I attempted the overdose in 2020, that wasn't my first time. I've tried a few times. I even had a very bad car accident when I was 26, and I had my 3 children then. The car, what was happening, I was in the middle of nowhere, didn't know the road, and the road went from bitumen to dirt, but it was red dirt, and I was on red bitumen, and didn't see at the road kind of dropped, and I was doing 100 Ks, and by the time I realized it had dropped, I was slowed down to 60, but it was too late. I overcorrected. The car rolled 3 times. My oldest son flew out the window. Just look at that car accident itself. Half of them, that car accident never happened because I never went that way. Because on that particular day, I'd had a big fight with my parents who lived in the middle of nowhere. So half of those gems never had a fight and they were fine. And the other half went with me, said, right, that's it, and took off. Half never had an accident. And the half that had an accident, half of them would have died because the police came and said that all of them should be killed, that all of us should have been killed in that accident. And even the half that survived the accident, there's all these possibilities that one of my children didn't survive, none of my children survived, I didn't survive, my children survived. It does your head in when you think of all the possibilities. So there's a gem out there who maybe is a YouTube creator who doesn't collect dolls, doesn't collect crystals, is not an author, is not a psychic, doesn't have a dog, isn't widowed, doesn't have multicolored hair, but just plain blonde. Isn't the blonde hair's not long, it's short. And maybe doesn't even wear glasses, because I believe that the glasses were a result of me studying. So half of those gems never studied. And then I went on to study more and more. So half didn't even do that. And when you start going half, and as I said, not every decision is so black and white. Some decisions, there might be 4 different answers, maybe infinite different answers. And out of those infinite different answers are infinite copies of you. So right from when you were first able to make a choice, that's split off into a copy. And at the time that you first made that first ever decision, that copy was an opposite, if you know what I mean. So, as I said, I'm 65 years old. Imagine that first time I made that first ever choice. That version has gone on and would be so remotely different from who I am that it's not me. Also, in 2000, by deed poll, I changed my name. So there's a copy out there that's not even called Gem. And maybe even at conception, because they always say, you're the winner on the day. You're the best sperm on the day. Just imagine if my parents had been intimate 10 or even a couple of minutes later. Would I be here? Would it be a man? Or would no one be here? And then there's also sexual orientation. I'm not completely heterosexual, let's say. So there's all those different versions too. And at one stage, I was a Christian. So there's still Christian versions of me out there. There are Baha'i versions of me out there. One time I was learning to fly ultralights. Some of those gems have gone on to be a pilot. And what if somehow a wormhole was created and you could meet the most different version of yourself, the most obscure? Would that person even look like me? Would they have my emotions? Would they think like me? They might be really nasty. She might be a bitch. She could be rich. She could be famous. I wanted to be a rock and roll singer. And there were times I auditioned for bands, and I have dreams of me being famous. So there's that version of me who's very famous. And I'm also an author. There's a version out there who's a very famous author. There's a version who's not an author, a version who's not a singer, who doesn't do art. There's a version where all my pets I've had, that never happened. Or some of them happened. Or one of them happened. And in some cases, they either died earlier or later. There's a version of me still married to Rob, still a drug addict, and maybe even Jimmy, my dog, is still alive. And Sahara has passed. Or maybe we never had them and we're still drug addicts. Today, as I was walking out, because I had a hysterectomy at 36, so half of me didn't, or half of that version of Jen didn't, I tried to work out whether Rob and I would have ever had kids. And I worked out that the chances were so minuscule. I met Rob at 43, so the chances, and he's the love of my life, the chances of having a child with him would be so remote. Because in one version, one of the pregnancies I lost at 18 weeks, and it was because because I got an autopsy done, had an extra chromosome. Well, in another reality, he survived, and it was a special needs child. There's another time I had an ectopic pregnancy, and they got to me just in time. It burst on the operating table. That's another time I could have died. So there's quite a number of versions of Jem that have died, that have passed on. So why have I discussed this? Because it's a really good thought to think about. And just to blow your mind, I believe in reincarnation. So I believe I was somebody else. In fact, I believe I was a French spy in the World War II named Marie or Maria, and I had dark hair. Think back to Marie or Maria and how many choices, how many versions of her there would be. And as I said, I believe in reincarnation. So she's died and I've reincarnated. What about all those versions of Marie that reincarnated? Are they even me? Okay, drop a comment, and please do so respectfully. What do you think? Because there's a version of you who's a murderer. There's a version of you who's an inventor. There's a version of you who's married. There's a version of you that never made it. There's a healthy version of you. There's a very sick version of you. There's a version of you that can see. There's a version of you that is blind. There's a version of you that looks just totally different to how you look. There's a version of you who even may be the president. I got into politics at one stage, and I was nominated for the Senate. And around about the same time, but a bit later, they asked me to stand for a seat on the Gold Coast. Well, that particular party did really well that year, and I could have been the member. One version of me is the member for that particular area. Another version is actually the member for Townsville, because I never left Townsville to go to the Gold Coast. And then there's a version that never got into politics. When you look at the things you own, where you live, what your name is, what your fashion is, what you like in music, what you like to collect, what you like to read, what you like to watch, what you like to do. There's a version of you out there that doesn't like anything like that. And they are so extremely different from who you are that they're not you. And just to blow your mind a little bit further, the body, this is oversimplified. Cells in the body are completely different new cells. So you're a new person physically every 6 years. And blow your mind further, I believe time is frozen. So everything that is happening all in the now. In other words, Julius Caesar is happening right now. The future is all now. And I learned this from Einstein's theory of relativity, which I did at uni. And the concept is everything is frozen. So I am still, because the past is now and the future is now, all is in the now, I'm still making choices that are still changing me. Let me know in the comments, do so respectfully. What do you think of this idea? And the more you think about it, the more you go, mind blown. And here's a question. If you could meet the version of you that is so extremely different that it is not you, what would you say to that version of you? And would you even like that version of you? That's another thing. Because I feel I am, and it's taken a lot of work, the best version of myself. Is it? Is there a better version of me out there? There would be a healthier one. And a version of you is not watching me on YouTube, because there's a version that doesn't even exist. So let me know, what would you say to this version of you? And remember, scientists now believe there is the multi-version or dimensions, multi-universe. I also believe that something happened over a decade ago and we have changed timelines. Did we merge with a version of ourselves because of Mandela effects, of which I suffer many of them? Did I merge with another version of me? And if I did, what would the old version, if that timeline still was, be? Okay, thank you very much for watching. I will keep you up to date with what I am doing. Please be kind to one another. Smile at a stranger. You might just save a life. And if only the world was less judgmental, more tolerant, less racist, less biased. And in some dimension, maybe it is. In some dimension, maybe the world is perfect. But if it is, we wouldn't know what love was or what light was, because to know love and to know things, you have to know the opposite. For example, hot, cold, male, female, light, dark, evil, good, angry, peace, all of it. But there's some reality where it's just perfect. And I also believe when we die, we go back to all that is, which is pure, unconditional love. I believe we are the universe experiencing itself. Every time you hurt or harm someone, you are hurting yourself. With that, take care of yourself. And please let me know what you think about this topic. Love, light, and blessings. And I will be back soon. Bye.